Hi, Empower Her. How you doing today? I wanted to do this series called "From Victim to Victory." Now what? And I put the emphasis on now what because there are a lot of times when we see a lot of people who go through things and they overcome those things, right? And so, on the outside looking in, sometimes you think that do they ever face that insecurity again? Do they ever have those thoughts reoccur? Is that just me? When I get through the things that I am going to get through, will those thoughts ever come back? Will I ever face those situations again? How do those people continue to have a smile on their face when they went through so much turmoil? How do they do it? And so in June of this year, so 2021, we had a runway show because I like the runway, right? It's called On the Runway from Victim to Victory. And there we saw women who've overcame sexual abuse, homelessness, low self-esteem, low self-worth, suicide ideations, domestic violence, homelessness, barren womb, and oh, teenage mothers. So we saw those women and we heard a little synopsis of their story and a synopsis of their story and the things they went through. And we saw where they are now, the victory that they stepped into. That they are no longer who they were. They are no longer a victim of the circumstances of the hand that they were dealt. They're no longer a victim to the circumstances they put themselves in. Because not every single person was a victim of someone else's hand. Sometimes we place ourselves in situations and we become victims because of the actions that we chose to take. Right? And so we saw women, we heard their story and the things that they've gone through. Not everybody's story was as long or as in depth or as profound as the next. But that was the thing that that person was going through. And that person found freedom and felt freedom in coming out. And so with the from victim to victory, now what says, so what happens when those thoughts come back? What happens when I'm triggered? What happens when I feel I'm not enough? What happens if I feel that I'm not beautiful? What happens if I feel like I will never be loved? What happens if I'm faced with the situation of homelessness again? Will I revert back to my victimhood? Or will I overcome that? Or do I just stay stuck and not overcome, not surpass, not move forward? Because what if it happens again? What if I'm comfortable here? I might as well stay here. Is there a process for getting out of this and staying out of this without reverting back? And so with this series, I want to talk to women who's overcame different situations, drug abuse, pain, hurt, anger, a lot of the mental and physical issues that we face as women, childhood traumas that we go through that keeps us in a defense mode, that we can't move forward because we're so mad at everybody in our past. How do we move past that so that we can flourish in the life that God has for us? How do I say, I'm no longer that person? Those things that those people said about me are no longer true. Even if at one point I believed them. Even if at one point I believe I am nothing. Even if at one point I believed those words when they told me I was worthless and I was a slut and I never amount to nothing, I never become nothing. Even if at one point in my life I believed those things, how do I move forward now? Do I put on a brave face and smile in front of everybody And then behind closed doors, I'm self-loathing. I'm depressed. You know, what do I do? When someone walks by me or says something negatively to me at work, do I go back in my shell and say that it must be true because everybody else has said those things? How do I keep myself motivated? How do I keep the strength and the confidence? How do I persevere? How do I continue to build the tenacity in this? So that's why I wanted to do this series. Now, what? I've came out. I left that situation in the spotlight, in front of the camera. I'm perfectly fine. But how do I keep that same confidence behind closed doors? What is the internal work that I must do to continue on this journey of self-confidence, of not going back to the victimhood, not going back to past situations, to actually growing and glowing and pursuing God's purpose for my life fully and wholly, understanding that he did everything that happened to us was done purposely, not only for us, but for that next person that's watching us. And so I want each month there's going to be a different woman talking about her situation, what she's came out of, and then what she's actually doing to sustain that. Because that's the hardest part. When you first walk out of it, when you finally get the strength to walk out, because sometimes it takes a lot of strength to walk out of a situation. It takes a lot of strength to gain clarity about who you are. It takes time to say, you know what? I deserve better. I'm worth more. What they said about me when I was 12, 11, 10, 5, I'm not those things. Because a lot of times we walk in words that people have said over us because obviously because they said it, it must be true. So I must walk into these things. And so I want to have this series, and we're going to start with me, Crystal. I am the founder of Empower Her, as well as the CEO of Loose by Christ. All right, that's a nonprofit organization where we help women who are in battered situations find resources for shelters and things like that. Offer prayer as well as counseling for any woman in a domestic violence situation. Anybody that just want to talk. We have a text line where if you don't want to talk and you just want to text, we offer those services as well. When I was in the situation, I felt as though I was in that by myself. And so I felt alone. Like there's no one that can understand me. There's no one in this world going through the things that I am going through. And it's my mission now to be as transparent with the things that I struggle with, to not only fulfill God's purpose, but to let somebody else know that you too, if he did it for me, it can happen for you. But there are steps to take once we walk out of that to continue us on that journey. And so I went through, as a child, mental, physical abuse. I suffered from low self-esteem, low self-worth, self-hatred, literally. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel cherished. I didn't feel protected by my own family. I was raped, I was molested, and I was abused. And I went from, I spoke and said, hey, these things are happening to me. I'm getting molested. My cousins molested me. A family friend raped me. My uncle molested me. These things are happening to me. Please help. And not one person came to rescue me. So I suffered with so what is it about me that these people that were deemed, I was brought here, I didn't ask to come into this world, that were supposed to protect me, keep me, and love me, said that I wasn't worth it when I needed them. So I dealt with that, and then I went into leaving that, looking for love, a safe haven, protection. I left that situation and ran into the arms of what I thought was my knight in shining armor at 15. Nah. So I was with this person from the age of 15 to 27, still searching for something. And I walked into leaving brokenness, going into something broken. I broke into more pieces. Do you know you can break something into more pieces even though it's already broken? So I broke into more pieces because I went to a physically and more mentally abusive situation where he used the things that happened in my past against me. Like I deserved it. Who was gonna? You're not worth loving that your mama and your daddy didn't even love you. He would program these things in my head. I already didn't feel love before. The first guy that said hi to me, I was like, found him, and he was no better. And so I felt ugly. We had 4 boys together. So I'm thinking, I'm the mother of his kids. He has to love me. Like, okay, that family didn't love me, but this one we made together. He has to love me. And that was not the truth. I went from, again, physical abuse, mental abuse. I was hog-tied in closets. I attempted suicide. I was in a mental hospital. I checked myself into a crazy hospital because I was literally trying to figure out what's going on with my life. I even thought that there was reincarnation was real, that I was a horrible person in my past life, that I was reincarnated into who I am today, Crystal, to be punished for the things of my past. Because my childhood was so bad. Then the relationship with my kid's father was so bad. Yeah, I know. My nail broke and it won't come off right now. So my relationship with my kid's father was so bad. And then it has to be me, right? People always say, what's the common denominator? The common denominator in all those situations was Crystal. So then it has to be Crystal. Crystal, you're the issue. That was mentally daunting to me, that I'm the issue. How can I be the issue? It took a while for me to move out of that situation. I was with my kid's father from I was 15 till I was 27. Long time. Again, I went into a situation broken. I was a people pleaser. Please love me. I'm trying to figure out what's going on in my life that I can't get this love. So it took me a long time to walk out. I'm not going to sit here and lie. But when I finally did, I found God in the midst. I grew up in the church, but I didn't have a relationship with God until I knew who he was. I knew of him. But I didn't. Me and him wasn't cool because the things that I was going through, there's no way there's a God that loves me. Yeah, that's how I felt, right? And so I found God while I was hogtied in the closet by my kid's father, and this is even after my suicide attempt. And so I was like, okay, God, what's going on? Why me? Why aren't you there? There's no way you can love me. You're just as bad as everyone else because you're putting me through this. There's no way you love me. Finding God, I didn't walk away and the next day and say, oh, I'm peaced out, I got God. It still took more years for me to walk away, but I found little by little, spending time with God and my relationship with God gave me confidence enough to say, I can do this. Now, I didn't have a support system, so when I left. I had to figure out things on my own, how to make it happen. But I did, and I got out of that situation. And so I got out of that situation. I still dealt with even leaving him. This is 27. I'm old now, right? I'm an old hen. Leaving a situation, still damaged. So still feels low self-worth, a lot of self-hatred still. But I craved peace. It was just so toxic. It was fighting, arguing. It was the most toxic situation I've ever been in my life. And I just knew that I didn't want that. And then I went from that, and I was like, I'm going to get a totally different, opposite man. I got to find my Prince Charmer. And then I got married to my ex-husband, and he was totally opposite, but he was still the same. Totally opposite, but it was still the same because I was still damaged and I was still searching for an external factor of loving me and protection for me with the relationship with Christ because I wasn't fully healed myself and I fully didn't do the work. And I thought that I was healed because I was like, yes, I overcame physical abuse, I overcame molestation, I overcame my kids being molested, I overcame all these things. I am healed, but I was still being triggered because I thought that I was over things because I had gotten out of the situation, right? So like physically getting out of it. But family issues, I would still get triggered, Dang, these people. Things that people will say to me would trigger me, would take me back to a place of self-worth, self-loathing. Even at work, like somebody could say something and I will take me all the way back. I could be excelling and succeeding at work if one person said, I don't like that. Or it was little stuff that would trigger me and take me back to a place that I didn't want to be. That made me realize that I wasn't healed. I wasn't free. The physical me was. So just like the runway from victim to victory, right? Physically, I'm out of it. It feels good when the spotlight is on and everybody can see that I did it. I did it, girl. I'm free. But I was still mentally trapped. I was bound by the thoughts. I was bound by reoccurring words that I heard others say. I was bound by those things and I was crippled by them that kept me from being able to move truly, freely into the freedom that God has for me. I was still stuck, still bound. I remember the things that had helped me get out of those situations was journaling. Like literally from me, this is what worked for me. For me to get over the anger from my family and from my past, I would journal things that happened to me. So any bad thing or any situation that I deemed was unfair or not good for me, I journaled it, right? But when I journaled those things, I also journaled the lesson that Crystal learned from it. Because again, every situation that we go through, there's something about us, about the situation that we learn from that. Because I feel that if I didn't journal the situation and then journal the lesson, I'm always going to think about the situation and the negative part and not something that I could have taken away from it. So I had to find a takeaway. I couldn't just sit there and say, oh, woe is me, oh, woe is me, oh, woe is me. I'm always going to be the victim if it's a woe is me. I'm never going to learn from the situations that I had went through. So I had to take the time to process it. And I know it's a lot because a lot of us, when we going through these hard things, it's hard to say that I'm supposed to learn something out of this. I'm supposed to gain something out of this. I was molested as a child, right? I didn't have a voice because when I told that I was molested by my uncle, raped by my cousin, these are family members, I was told to hush, I deserved it, and I can't speak on things like this. But when my children, boys, everybody, people are more protective over girls, when my boys were molested by a family member, when they were molested, I said to myself, I don't want them to ever feel the way that I felt. I didn't revert back to that victim mentality. It was like, well, it happened to me. And this is just the hand that I was dealt. I said, no, I'm going to be that protector and that voice for them, so they can know that they can always come to me and let me know what's going on. And guess what mama's going to do? She's going to jump into action. But the same thing happened with that situation. When the boys said that they were molested, we were told, you don't turn on family. These are not the things that you say. We were shut out from the family for speaking against someone that molested them. And I refused to allow my kids to feel that they didn't have a voice, because I remember that point in time in my life when I was getting molested more than once. Every time he came over, every time my cousin came around, he would remind me that that's what I wanted and I deserved it. And that's what girls like nowadays. And so I didn't want that for my children. So I made sure that I was not going to allow that to happen. And so in my journaling of my past, I journal me being molested and the things that I went through. But I also learned, how it made me feel and the things that I didn't want to happen and what I learned from that helped me in my relationship, in that situation with my boys. My baby boy was one. My baby boy was one. So, my oldest at that time was 5. So, you know, writing that and saying, I got to do something different. These are the things that I can't. That actually, I found strength in that. Right? I found strength there. So the journaling helped me. Any kind of journaling that I've done, I always found a lesson. Losing a job. If I lost a job, I remember I was a management at a manufacturing company, and I got management there, got laid off because the company got bought out, and they brought in their own people. Instead of saying, see, always something happening to me in life, which we always entail to go through, right? It's always something. I journal, hey, well, this happened, but this is the takeaway I got. I got these skills out of this. I got this knowledge out of this. Because again, if we only journal or we only see what happened, we will never gain the lesson that was supposed to be taught to us about that situation. Even in my relationship with my kid's father, as abusive as it was, I even learned something from that. Be straight up and honest with you. Not everything deserves a rebuttal. Yeah, be honest with you. We're always, you have to take into account. I didn't have to, I wasn't cowarding in a corner because he was abusive. It was abusive. He did overpower me. Yes. Again, I told you I was hogtied in the closet. He did overpower me, but I was one of those women. My mom and them, I didn't have a voice growing up. So I went from not having a voice to I'm going to have a voice. From a people pleasing, no voice, please love me. Even with that situation, I was like, no, I gotta stand the ground. And I went from, you can't tell me what to do, blah, blah, blah. And when you with an abusive person, does pouring gasoline on the fire dot the fire out? Or does it enrage it more? I'm not saying what he did was right, but what does it do? It enrages the person more. So these are the things that I did. I wasn't leaving. So I'm just adding gas to the fire. And this is, again, it was a very toxic situation. And so I even journaled my abuse, and then journal what I learned from it. And I even learned things about me on why I accepted the things that I accepted from that situation. Affirmations. I write affirmations on my mirror because sometimes you look out at others and you don't feel pretty. You don't feel pretty compared to everybody else that's out here. And you got to remind yourself that you are beautiful. And these are things that I have to say to myself, especially when I keep having to, I feel sorry, somebody had texted me, especially when thoughts continue to reoccur. We have to drown out those negative thoughts with truth, the negative thoughts with positivity. And so you have to have set scriptures that that these are going to impact me so much when I do these things or when I'm feeling this way. And so you have to identify words, scriptures, affirmations, and have them readily available in your head. They're written on my mirror in my bathroom. They're written on journals. They're on my phone. And to keep me at peace when my mind starts to spiral out of control. I am beautiful. I am strong. I am not those things that they said I was. I am full of peace. I am a good mother. All these things that whatever you have to say to yourself to make yourself come back to who you are when you come out of that victimhood, you have to. But you have to first identify those things which work. You have to, just like a drug addict. When a drug addict first recovers from drugs or gets out of drug, they can no longer put themselves in a situation where they're around all those drugs until they're fully free, right? And so that's removing yourself from toxic situations on social media. Changing the things that you listen to so that your mindset can always be positive. Motivational videos, changing the music that you listen to. These things helped because, again, when we're triggered, when we're brought back to that place, I'm going to promise you, I'm going to tell you that you will be brought back to that place. What's stored up in you, right? Because what's stored up in you is going to come out when I'm storing something, when I have something stored in me, when I'm feeling a certain type of way, my body is going to go for that stored energy. So if my stored energy is now positivity, is now affirmations, is now the lessons that I've learned, it's now the places that I want to go, I'm going to think that way versus thinking all I have stored up is my past, is those bad memories, is those things that I went through, is those things that have hurt me. So when I'm in that spot mentally, and I'm going down for new stored energy, all I'm going to do is regurgitate those things that was already there. Those negative thoughts. I am less than. Can't make it. I can't get through this. They were right. Those things they said about me has to be right. But no, we have to fill ourselves with God's word, positivity, motivation to keep us at bay. Because when I say those things will happen, those times will come where you will feel less than again. You will feel as though you can't make it. You will feel as though you can't get these things done. And so for me, journaling, affirmations, and then just surrounding myself with positivity. I even remove people out of my life that I feel are too negative. I will shut it down and shut it out because I've been through way too much to allow that into my circle. That's not who I'm not going and gossiping. I don't care if you said that Crystal did this, that, on the third. I do not have the time for it. My energy is spent on ensuring that my mental health, my wellness, my purpose, my relationship with Christ, my relationship with my children, my relationship with my family, all these things are flourishing. I don't have the time for anything that's negative in my life. So I will dismiss you without even saying you did this and that for me, to me. It's just I can no longer allow this in my life. That's it. I'm so at peace in my life. I'm not mad at my kid's father. I'm not mad at my ex-husband. I'm not mad at my family for the things that I've done. I really have a good relationship with these people. And there's no animosity. There's no anger because I determined that I was going to live in peace. But the work that I had to put in, because again, I would be around family and be triggered by what somebody did or what somebody said, and they weren't even talking to me because I hadn't done that work. And I would be like, see, this is why I couldn't. That's why I can't stand these type of people. This is why I can't be around here. And me and my kids would just pack up and go. Like, what happened to you? Why are you upset? What they do to you, they didn't even say nothing to you. Because being there took me back to a place where I didn't like to, or what I've seen them do to me, or how I've seen them treat me, and it automatically took me back to that place. And so by identifying what triggered me, by journaling, by positivity, I was able to forgive even without not one person telling me that they were sorry. I'm going to be honest with you. Not one person in my past that says, you know what, Crystal? You did go through it. I did put you through this. Not one person said, I'm sorry. But I had to have peace for me because I'm angry. These people have moved on with their lives and they're doing all these other things. Why would I still sit in anger, anguish, and turmoil, and pain, and resentment? That keeps me from moving forward in any aspect in life. Holding grudges. I couldn't. And that's just for me because I didn't like that person. So I had to actually put in work. And to stay in our victory, we have to put in work. And so that's why this series, Now What, is so important to me. It's so important to me because I want others to know that there is a victory after our victimhood. And we can go from victim to victory and not revert back to victim. But there are things that we must do to stay in our victory. And so for me, again, I just recap. I identify what triggered me. What was those things that triggered me? Journaling the bad things that happened to me and then the lessons that I learned. So when I won't remember just the bad thing. I remember what I learned. What was my takeaway? What could I have done differently for the next time I face a situation like that? Those are very important. Affirmations. Telling myself, who I am, what I am, the truth about myself. Reversing those negative word curses. And not only the ones, because I believe those things that those people told me about myself, that I would say them about myself. I am nothing. I can't do this job. It is too hard. I give up. I quit. So I did. So I had to reverse the things that I said because I was blocking myself, because my tongue. I owned them. Then once I owned them, I started to speak them, right? Because what somebody else say can't determine who you are. It's what you say, right? What you start to believe. So I started to believe those things. I started to say those things because I believe those things to be true. And so I had to put in the work and to start feeding myself positivity, like I talked about before. So what we're storing up. So I changed the things that I listened to, changed the people that I was around, changed the things that I read, changed the things that I looked at, because my self-esteem, I was so damaged with self-hatred, self-loathing, low self-worth. It was just the mental trauma that I went through. The physical abuse was horrible, but the mental abuse stayed with me longer than my scars. And so that took more work, but it took intent. I was intentional about becoming free. It wasn't just a prayer to God. I have a great relationship with God. He knows me. I know that I was brought here to break generational curses. So what was allowed in my family before, I'm going to bear that, but it stops here. My children will never endure it. But he gave me the strength, right? For that tenacity, for that perseverance, for me to continue to keep going, because I know for a fact that there's a purpose for my life. Because I believe that if you just knew in detail of what I've been through, I'm not supposed to be stable. I'm supposed to be on drugs and all these, and on drugs, on homelessness, still mad and bitter and angry at the world for the things of my past, but I'm not. Because I'm not. I could have died in those situations. I could be here. I could have AIDS because I was, my kid's father cheated on me multiple times and I stayed with him. And I don't have AIDS or anything like that. Like stuff like that, I started to think about. Like I used to ask God, why weren't you there? Just like the poem, The Footprints in the Sand, when you say, we went through all that turmoil, where were you? And why did I only see one footprint in the sand? One set of footprints in the sand. He said, that's when I was carrying you. And I believe that he was carrying me through those times, because I attempted suicide. I was beat so much, I used to black out. I was pistol whipped. It was just so much going on in that household with my kid's father that I shouldn't be alive right now, but I am. I shouldn't have a sound mind right now, but I do. I'm not going to say that you won't get triggered. What I'm going to say is that you have to do the work. If victory is what you want to continue to stand in. And so it's changing the circles, changing what goes into us, the songs, the people, what we read, what we listen to, what we watch. It's affirmations. Again, write them on the mirror, write them on your journal, write them on your hand. Have to have a daily affirmation. We get notifications on our phone, daily affirmations that come on your phone, whatever you need to do. So when you store yourself up with some scriptures that apply, that are applicable to you and your current situation, get scriptures that are applied to you in your current situations. Please. People always say that the Bible is not relevant, but the Bible is so relevant today as it was back then. I know I did a series on it not too long ago. Is the Bible relevant today? And yes, it is, and it's still alive. So you have to get scriptures out that are relevant to you and what you're going through right now. Journaling, let it out. Do not hold it in. Counseling. I went to counseling. I put my kids through counseling. Let it out. Let it out. Talk about it. Find a friend. Journal. It's possible to stay in peace. I'm not going to say it won't get triggered, but these are the things that work for me. So as we continue with this series, next month we will have another one of our Victim to Victory ladies that attended the runway show with me in June. And she will talk about what steps does she take to stay in victory. Because again, things will still come against us. We will still be impacted. We will still face situations that will try to take us back to that place. We have to be ready because we know it's coming and we want to stay in victory. We want to stay in peace and we want to fulfill the calling that God has for our life. And these are just the things that has helped me. If you have any comments or anything that I can expound on, please let me know. Please send a comment. Please reach out to me at noblescrystal@yahoo.com. But again, this is From Victim to Victory. Now what? Thank you.